Two most important skills for men to master before 2030, right? So I've done a lot of thinking recently. There's been a lot of changes, like you could say both in the dating market and also in the world at large, right? It's been a pretty crazy time in politics and everything else. So for me, you guys can probably guess that one of these things is going to be related to what we do, but the other one is obvious in another way, but I think it's important how these two things converge. So I'm going to get into the sort of nitty gritty, get into the details here, and yeah, I might go a little bit deep. And then at the end of this, hopefully, I'm going to have some questions. You guys are going to have some stuff that you want to ask me, that you want to run by me, and we can discuss that as well. So, number one, natural, spontaneous social skills and persuasion, right? This is an absolute no-brainer. That this is definitely going to be one of the two most important skills. That is things like cold approach. So, as you guys all know, walking up to a woman in a public daytime setting, let's say, but also and approaching her, giving a compliment, forming a connection, getting a number, whatever else. But also real life social network and social centering, as I call it, creating a social center, right? So that's things like gyms, members clubs, co-living and co-working are going to become increasingly popular, and we'll get into exactly why. But the thing I've been sort of thinking more and more is this, that cold approach is becoming the primary status symbol because the more and more online people go, the more and more time people spend on social media, the less developed are their social skills. And the generation that's coming up after them, after Gen Z, they are growing up thinking that social skills aren't important because they just can't see the reason for them, right? They can't see the value. They've never lived in a world where it's obvious why social skills are valuable, and they wonder why they're unhappy. They wonder why they get depressed. Obviously, stretches into the sort of Gen Z era as well, but particularly the next generation after, it's going to be really interesting to see how they do. So this is going to be such a valuable skill to learn that it doesn't even do it justice to say this. There are going to be so few men who actually know how to start a conversation, not just with a woman, but with basically anyone. Guys are not going to know how to make friends. They're already struggling with this. So the value of this skill is going to shoot up. It's going to become really, really valuable. Now, if we have a look here, this is very much how I see it, right? We've got online influence, right? The online influencers, the guys with the yachts, with the huge followings, with this whole sort of mess of people who maybe are legit. You've got the Alex Hormozis, the Iman Gadzis. You could even say Tate, for example, people who are legit. They've built something real. They've worked hard. They've managed to get out of the rat race. But then you've got 1,000 copycats, 1,000 other people who look like them, and you really just don't know. So I'm going to go over this graph, but you know, this really is the thing that there's people that are buying, essentially buying. Um, Look at this. There are people that are literally paying $64 an hour so that they can pretend they've chartered a plane. And like this isn't an isolated incident. This is happening all the time in China for 6 yuan, which is less than a pound. You can have a recording of your voice added to stock images of expensive cars. So look, I don't need to explain this. You guys are very, very smart. You already know how this works. But a lot of it is just complete nonsense, right? These guys aren't legit. They're not real. It's not real. You're seeing a fake life from fake people just capping, pretending. So I made this, and I think this is very accurate. It took me a long time, so I hope you guys appreciate this. I really, really hope this sparks something in you, and you think, "Wow, Sam, great graph creating skills. That's great." So look, we've got value on this axis, and we've got time, year on this axis. Online influence versus social skills. I look at this from about 2010. 2012 was really the year where everything started to get very, very strange. It was really when Tinder started kicking off, Facebook started really exponentially growing, and a bunch of other things. Instagram came in around this time, probably around here. And what we saw is that social skills and online influence. Online influence was really just a very rare thing. It was like celeb culture, right? You have the celebrities on the TV channels and such, and the odd YouTuber here and there that was like getting well known, but it really wasn't normal for YouTubers to come along, for influencers on Instagram, for these sort of podcast people who somehow just appear on podcasts, like people who just do circuits on different different media and stuff like that. And so, yeah, so this online influence really started to grow from around 2012. And we saw, 2010 to 2020, online influencers and that culture of trying to sort of show off online really, really grow into a crescendo. And social skills and the sort of value of social skills. And I know because, I came into Cold Approach around here, around 2000 and, well, when was it really? 2014, 2014-ish, 14, 13, 14, yeah, around here. And I watched like Tinder suddenly take over, right? When I first got into this, it was still this really artful, kind of unique thing that only a few men were doing and knew how to do. And it was just considered to be something pretty interesting and pretty courageous and very, very exciting, right? It was very, very niche. And then when this online Instagram, Facebook, Tinder, all of this came along, it was very, very strange because I sort of watched the marketplace restructure itself, right? Before it was just the guys who had the confidence to walk up and say something and they had a massive premium. And then all of a sudden, everyone was meeting people online. And that was always considered for my generation, early 90s, that was always considered to be something deeply humiliating, right? The idea that people used to joke about like plenty of fish and these like dating apps, and it was embarrassing. It was something your like middle-aged women who lived with two cats would put themselves on dating sites. It was just a really embarrassing thing. And then all of a sudden it just became normalized, but it never really did to me. It always seemed extremely lame. Like it's not cool. There's no way that that is a respectable solution to the issue of finding a partner. But what happened is this online influencer culture grew and grew and grew, and the value of social skills gradually and then exponentially started to diminish up until COVID. And then for a very brief time, when everyone was locked away, what we saw is the few people that were actually able to go out and start conversations actually had a lot of fun. They got a lot of dates. There were some covert parties being organized, and the people that were actually getting out there and sort of trying to live and trying to sort of, maybe you could say, flex and break the rules around that actually had a huge premium because it seemed like, again, they stood out. Maybe not all for the right reasons, right? You could argue it either way. Maybe they should have been following the rules. Either way, women aren't interested. They don't really care if the guy like followed the rules or not. What does that say about his specific ethics at the time? That is not a sort of immediate concern for her. She's more attracted to the qualities that don't relate to his morals and his ethics, but that relate to his suitability as a protector and a provider. So what we saw in COVID was this brief spike where social skills again were very, very highly valued. And doing cold approach around that time, if you're in the right area, was incredibly lucrative. And what happened with the online influence is that everyone kind of got sick of it a little bit because they were all stuck at home watching stuff. And some people blew up, but a lot of people, it was just like, God, I miss real life. I miss going outside. I miss the naturalness and the authenticity of real life communication, right? So we saw this blip and then maxed out around 2020, 2021, 2022. I would say up to 2023, where we really had full on clown world, meaning just ridiculous, ridiculous online use, just bizarre online happenings, loads of new influencers flouting this and that and the other. And again, we see this massive dip in social skills. And this is around the time when the London Underground started getting signs saying that you can't look at a woman, documentaries coming out, that men should be arrested if they go up and talk to a woman, just all of this nonsense. I would say social brainwashing to make people as scared as they can be of the one thing that connects all humans from all places, which is the fact that they have a shared humanity and they can all speak to each other, and that they're strong and resilient enough if they don't like the conversation to say, I don't want to talk to you, go away, and for to expect that the other person can handle that, and for us all to just be normal, functioning human beings, right? And what I then see, and I would say not that there's a correlation, but around the sort of Trump coming back into presidency and a lot of the Overton window expanding of what you're allowed to talk about and what is acceptable for you to sort of talk about online, brought it back to a point where I start to see social skills becoming valuable again. And we can talk about this at large, but I think even in my day-to-day experience, going out and working with clients in London, going out and coaching guys in the daytime, I see the responses change through this time. And I think we're at a stage now, right, which is this thick line that I've created here, where we really are starting to see the two switch. And I think this is a result of a lot of these online influencers being just exposed. I think it's the huge proliferation of online influencers and fake ones, as we looked in that image below, right? People literally just fully faking it. And how hard is this to do? It's so easy to do. You can now have entire online profiles, right? So you can just literally have a fake dating profile online. So this is what we're seeing, right? As you can see in these articles, um, 57% of Gen Zs in America want to be a social media influencer when they grow up, and 53% describe it as a reputable career choice, right? And at the same time as all of these younger people want to just be influencers, we see in studies in the US that social interaction growing as a required skill for most careers and jobs by 12 percentage points between then and then. And there's more recent studies that show it continue to be an increasingly more valuable skill to have in the workplace, right? Jobs that blend cognitive ability and social skill pay the highest premiums according to the study. So we're starting to see this online influencer model replace, and I'm sure that by 2030, you are going to be indistinguishable from an AI. There are going to be so many AI dating apps, AI influencers, fake photos. No one's going to know what's what. Women are going to be terrified to meet any man online because he has no idea if he's real or if he's not, if he actually made money or if he didn't. It's going to become a trope. It's going to be like a meme of the person being an influencer. Um, and it will all be very obviously nonsense as it is right now. I suppose it's just people are slow to catch up, you could say, right? So, guys who are watching, I hope comments are available. But if you are here and give me a comment, ask me a question, I would be happy to hear you. Maybe you already are. I don't know. I can't see, unfortunately. So there's that. But yeah. So here's what I started to see happening, right? When I'm working in London, I see promoters, right? Who don't have a lot of money typically. They're high in social skills, they're high in social credit, social value, but typically not a lot of money. And they bring a wealthy client paying for tables. The women flock to the promoter and not to the wealthy man because in that environment, they're all pretty much equal, right? If you're in a high-end nightclub, the value is not obvious of the very, very wealthy guy and the club promoter. They both dress well, they're both social. The promoter's the one that is socially lubricated. He's able to talk to people. He's hosted a load of times before. They're some of the most socially confident and competent people in the world as club promoters. They just absolutely have to be. And I did it for 5 years, so I know how it looks and how it works. So what we start to see is environments where it all reveals itself, right? Where the person who had the best image maybe had like the fast cars, he had the expensive holidays online, and a woman would say and think, wow, he looks cool, he looks like a bad boy, he looks interesting. But then they meet him at the club and they're like, okay, this guy's empty. He spent all his time like online. I don't know what he's about. There's not much going on. He's not very sociable. Some club promoter who's just every weekend he's going out and bringing people to the club would absolutely clear up, right? They would get so much interest. They'd be hosting a house party afterwards, and they would absolutely rinse the floor with the conventionally more appealing options if you go by an Instagram profile. And I see this happening the world across, right? I've got two people that I know in London, and this is where this idea really started to become obvious to me. There's two friends of mine in London, and one of them used to be a lawyer, and he just quit, packed up shop, quit the whole thing, and decided to travel around teaching people. He gets given clients by myself and other friends. We literally like have set him up with some of our clients because he's so good at what he does. He takes them out and he's just a machine. He goes up and he talks to everyone. He has no resistance, no fear. He's kind of that monk type Cyan where he really doesn't care what people think. He doesn't care about anything. He's just dedicated his life to cold approach. Not how I'd want to live, probably not how you guys want to live, but full respect to him. This is what he does. I've got another friend in London. He's a huge, huge influencer online. He does huge brand deals and sponsorships and things like that. He's super fashionable. He's one of the fashion guys, you could say. And he really struggles because, as he said, when the cameras are off, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. So he's very good at performing when the cameras are rolling. But when they go off and he's by himself, he has this identity crisis and he doesn't know how to communicate with women or people. Most of his communication is work communication. It's all performative, it's all set up. And so when he has to break back into reality and actually be normal and just talk to people without any sense of performance, just communicating and sharing his intention, it's very, very difficult, right? And so these two people, if you saw them online, their online profiles, the one that's the monk of cold approach, he doesn't have an online profile. He deleted it all because he didn't want to be, he didn't really want any of that. He didn't want to be validating himself by other people's reactions. He just deleted all of it. He's completely invisible. And he used to be a successful lawyer. And this guy who's the influencer has millions in reach. And yet his social skills, if you put those two guys in a room together with a bunch of girls, I can tell you 100% the girls would end up with the guy who has no visibility, who's just real. So the main takeaway then is that that sort of influencer model can get you access. It can get you access to social status, to social events, to women. But what do you do once you've got that access, right? Because after that point, it doesn't do anything. Because it doesn't matter how you look in your profile or online, if you just fall apart in person, it doesn't mean anything. So fundamentally, it's all arbitrary. The whole influence stuff is completely arbitrary to your, however you define success, however you think of it. If it's, being, having status, being, getting money, whatever it is, you cannot do that to a high level unless you've developed the social skills, right? So, you see it all the time as well with footballers, right? And there's a lot of stories with Paris Hilton, but I just want to make the point as simply as possible, where there is another celebrity who's popular online, an actor or something like this, but behind the scenes, they're just not particularly interesting. They've just got one very refined skill set. And we look at these people and like, oh, they can get whoever they want. Yeah, they can get them for the night because they really don't need to say anything. But she then falls in love with someone who doesn't have any of that money or fame or prestige because he's magic, right? It's an adventure. It feels different. It makes her feel different. And I can tell you this happens all the time, right? You see it all the time. You see billionaires and their wife ends up going off with the gardener because there's some magic there. There's something interesting. There's some reality, right? Whereas the mere celebrity facade very often seems like a value add, but once they realize that it doesn't say anything about who that person is under that facade, women get bored very, very quickly. So to sort of emphasize this and show this, I think that this kind of mimics the other graph, but in a sense, it's like even your social skills staying at stasis, right? Let's say you maintain a level of social skills, and generationally, human men maintain a level of social skills. From about 2015, social skills had a not an inverse relationship, but that status had less of an influence. Social skills had less of an influence on status. So you could say in like 2000, the year 2000, social skills were way more important than an online profile because online profiles didn't exist, right? So we would put status way up here. From about 2015, you started to see it really, really dip where it had no influence. It had very, very little influence on your status, on your possibilities that come as a result of having good social skills. Again, around the COVID time, we saw this big spike where social skills became incredibly unique again, right? And desired and valuable. And that was very clear to everyone. And then and then what we saw is again it dips when we get to sort of clown world phase. And I think we're here. In fact, I don't just think it, I know that we're here because I'm watching this pattern evolve in real time. I'm watching the results. I'm sort of on the ground living this. And I'm seeing it become important again, right? Going to events, going out with clients, I see the way responses change, and I'm seeing the responses that the guys are getting, at least in this part of the world, because there are time lapses in different regions of the world, right? But in the UK, along with the sort of political upheaval, I would say that seems to be happening right now, we're seeing more and more a sort of common sense view of, hang on a sec, men should be able to start a conversation. That is fundamentally an attractive quality. And hang on a second, these people that I'm seeing online, that doesn't mean anything anymore. The supply of online influence has gone up, and there's less demand for each one, right? They're sharing the same pot between more of them, and the share of men with very, very good social skills is decreasing. So this is becoming the rare asset, the unique offer, you could say, that you have if you develop your social skills, and if you do that through cold approach, that is by far the best way to do it, because if you do it through cold approach, then it's the hardest thing. It's the organ, like the musical organ where you use your hands and feet. It's an example I use a lot with my one-to-one clients. If you learn to play the organ, it will take you a very long time to get good at the organ. However, if you play the piano, you're going to get after learning the organ, it's going to be so easy because you've just been using your feet and your hands. It's way more complicated. And so the piano seems easy, right? Other musical instruments, like, oh, this is so easy. I've already done the hardest one. I've learned to read organ music. Reading piano or percussion music is much, much easier now. So cold approach is like that. If you want to learn social skills, cold approach is the place to start. It is by far the most intense, the most first principles method to improving your social skills, which is way more important than your dating ability. If you have social skills, you have it all. You can network with billionaires. You can get for free what other people would pay a fortune for. You can collaborate, you can sell, you can persuade people to follow your lead. You can not so much convince, but you can present a great vision of your future to the woman that you're going to marry and to the kids that you're going to have with her. It's everything. It's conviction. If you have good social skills, you are persuasive, you're a salesperson, you have conviction, you are admired by men, you are desired by women. It is so fundamentally important. And we're just going to start to see this between now and 2030. And by that time, 2030, it will be more important than like online influence. You would rather be better at talking to groups, better at cold approach than to have like 40, 50, 100,000 followers. That is going to be absolutely meaningless. Personal brands are going to be valuable, small personal brands. These huge influencers with a load of attention but very little actual value are going to become a meme very, very soon. So I've showed you this, and this is really this is really the case in point. It's just too easy now to fake, to fake that level of influence. You can just fake it. And AI, I know people in my industry who are now doing AI profiles on dating apps, entirely AI. So they'll take a picture of you and they'll create an AI copy and put you in an interesting environment, make you look completely different. And they even say there's a window of time where this is going to work. And that's why we're capitalizing on it now, because soon everything's going to be AI. I don't want to be a part of the quick fix for this time. The next 5 years, we got to milk it as much as we can. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in things that last, whether it be with fashion and style, whether it be with skills, like fundamental human skills, like social skills. I'm not interested in what is working now. I'm interested in what never doesn't work. I'm interested in the clothes that never go out of fashion, right? Well, bootcut jeans come in, and then 2 years later, it's skinny jeans, and it's carrot jeans and twisted and whatever else. A suit never goes out of fashion, right? A slim, tailored suit never goes out of fashion. A leather jacket never goes out. A good leather jacket never goes out of fashion. So pay attention to the principles that endure and not to the sort of momentary fads that are sort of get rich quick schemes for the rest of your life. Importantly, this leads us to the second skill that is going to be equally as valuable, if not more valuable, by 2030. And it's the other side, it's the bell curve, right? One extreme in the other. And the other skill that's going to be important, and the exact reason why we're seeing this increase in the value of social skills and cold approach, is literacy in the use of AI and large language learning models. The precise reason why online influencer bubble will pop, just like we've seen with so many of these bubbles over the past 50, 60 years, and why real social skills will again be the primary indicator of value. As real profiles versus AI profiles look more and more the same, the only way to know what is real is to see, touch, hear, experience it, real life. And so the very thing that is causing the increase in the value of social skills is the other important thing that we've got to learn and we've got to master as men. There's no way that your job is going to survive unless there's an incorporation of AI, right? There's so much research on this now, and even for me, it's exactly the same. Whatever you do, there are ways that almost all of it is going to be done by an AI, right? Perhaps you speaking, your face, I mean, that may still be something that you do better, but the rest of it will be AI. So these two, you could say, diametrically opposed things, real world social skills and entirely online artificial intelligence, large language learning models. These two things, if you master both of them, are going to give you infinite possibilities. Like, just imagine this. You work as a middle manager in a paper manufacturer, right? You understand AI, you know how LLMs work and AI works. You understand social skills. You're a great persuader. You're great with women. You're great with men. You see that AI is about to take over your job. You're the person that can go to the director, go to the board and say, look, I know that AI is about to take over the company. You're only going to keep a couple of people at this company. Everyone else is going to be jobless. It's obvious. We all know how this is going to end. I know how to implement AI in my department better than anyone else in the world. And I want to show you my 3-step plan of how we can change this department entirely, implement AI such that it will only be me in this department, and I'll take care of everything else, right? That person could actually obliterate an entire department because he can show them that he can use AI to reduce their costs and fees, right? That's just an example I pluck somewhere out of my mind. It's everywhere, right? If you took 30 minutes to think about how AI threatens your job, you would very quickly realize that there's not much time left and this will take over very, very soon. So we combine the two, right? And there's a million ways that we can do that, right? If you think about a completely diametrically opposed case, like in my case, what can I do with AI to help the guys? Well, what if I fed a million messages and responses that I have with myself and my clients, 10,000 messages and responses. I really understand how to leverage and use the AI and how to prompt it. Prompt architects is a whole new career choice that is now, burst up onto the scene. Um, you'd be a prompt architect, and your job is essentially to create prompts better than anyone else, to know what to feed into the AI in order to get the most accurate and the most important results or the best quality results that you can get. That's an entire new career where it's thriving in businesses, right? So just like AI has been creeping up for years, then suddenly it's everywhere. I guess we all remember when ChatGPT sort of popped up and it's like suddenly your friends are saying, look at this thing, it can answer any question. Men who are confident in real life settings are already finding their feet versus wannabes and fakers, right? I am just seeing it all over the place, right? I mean, because look, I work with a lot of these men who've made a lot of monetary, financial success, and their social skills are chronically underdeveloped. I see it all the time. I'm going out with these people on a day-to-day basis, and they're admired for the wealth they've built, for the companies they've built, and yet they look to people in my position or people in some of your positions, I maybe could say, and they think, well, look, I've got all of this, but what can I do with it? Like, what's the point in having all of this if I can't build any relationships, build any connections? Like, what am I just going to sit on my own in a nice house? No one likes me, no one knows me. Like, actually think about it. It doesn't exist on its own as a thing of value. Money is completely fucking pointless if it doesn't give you relationships. It's literally all it's for. I mean, why do we want money? We don't really. We want status. We want power and status. Why do we want power and status without people? We don't. The only thing you can do with power and status is be admired by people and have control over people, right? Whether if you're a good-hearted person, an ethically sound person, then you want the status, you want the influence, you want to have great connections with people. If you're not, if you're perhaps an amoral person or an ethically blind person, then you want to leverage other people and use other people towards your own ends, which obviously we see more and more of as well. Either way, they don't exist in a vacuum. Status doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? Power only exists in relation to the amount of people you have power over, right? Or the level of the power that you have over those people. So it all depends on relationships. Nothing we could care about exists in isolation. It all depends on other people. And so it comes down to that argument about validation, external validation. Yes, you should be self-validated. Yes, you should have core self-esteem. The argument that you should not pay attention to external validation is bizarre. I don't know exactly where that started, but that is literally how we form identity, right? That is literally how we improve ourselves, is in relation to the responses we get from others, right? Whether that be a business landing page that we see is not performing with our audience, and so we change it, that's external validation. Whether it be us coming in and saying a funny joke and it turning out to be like really offensive and everyone hates it, it's like, okay, let me modify my behavior and let me not say that again or figure out a better way to say it. We exist in relation, we exist as an identity in relation to the way that we adapt to the identities of others and to the feedback and responses of others. So this is really the kicker. This is what we're seeing. Like Reddit is the place where you find so much real life truth because it's anonymous. So people say what they think, and it's not political in the same way that X is. I find Reddit a really interesting way to get a gauge of what people are actually thinking. Right now, I'm seeing more and more women on Reddit saying things like this. A guy asked a question, I'm confused. Is it okay to go in and start a conversation with a girl? I don't know if I should do it. And more women are coming up with responses like, of course you get women as well saying, no, never do it. We hate it. It's sexist, whatever. But, we didn't used to get so many of these types of responses, right? Yes, I appreciate the courage it takes for a man to respectfully start a conversation with a total stranger. Being respectful and not being upset if it doesn't lead to anything is the best way to do it, in my opinion. Like, obvious to you, it's obvious, right? To us, it's like, okay, yeah, obviously do it respectfully. But it's almost like the rest of the world is catching up, right? The sort of legacy media world is catching up. There's no longer this facade of everyone believing, like voluntarily believing that it's somehow bad to start a conversation with someone that you might want to partner up with and have a family with. My hunch is that more women wouldn't mind being approached if they didn't worry about a man responding poorly. And this does still happen, right? So really important that you position yourself as the actor, as the subject, as this sort of subject doing the action of cold approaching in the male role, that you position yourself as the opportunity for her to reframe the way she sees men and cold approach. Because many women, probably like, I mean, this girl's probably in her early 20s. There are many women who have literally never had a positive experience with a male. They have never had a positive experience with a man, whether it be their father who was weak or abusive or couldn't control his emotions, whether it was a brother who never was taught by that poor father how to treat his sister, whether it was a first boyfriend who was just trying to show off to his friends and publicly humiliated her. There are many women that literally do not have a single positive relationship with a man, not family, not friends, not intimate partners. And so the fact that we're seeing more and more younger women and girls saying that the only thing they worry about is the man responding poorly, and very often that rejection is maybe only so because they didn't want to sort of annoy you too much, right? They didn't want to say, to have a nice conversation for 10 minutes and then say, oh, sorry, I'm just not interested in dating you. Because maybe the guy would be in too deep and they'd be like, what, but why did, you stood here for ages and insult her and this and that and the other. So instead they just say, sorry, I'm in a rush. Sorry, I've got a boyfriend. Sorry, I'm busy. So you can be the one, the person, the man that shows that it's not like that. If she doesn't want to talk and she says, I'm sorry, I gotta go. Have a nice day, right? Have a great life. Take care. So that's really a nice way to position yourself mentally. It's like you go out, you build your resilience to rejection, you build your resilience to um, social awkwardness, you become a more competent communicator, you put yourself in the top 5% of men by doing that because, as we said, there are two things. And the first one is natural, spontaneous social skills and persuasion. They're all the same thing, they're all two sides of the same coin. Cold approach and real life social networking and social centering, finding a center for your socializing, right? Whether that be a community. And the reason why these are important is because they are two slightly separate skills. I know people who are very good at cold approach, but they don't know how to be in a group, and vice versa. People who are incredibly charismatic in a group, but they're like terrible one-on-one with a girl. So if you can learn both of those things, you are a charismatic person. If you're a charismatic person coming up in a digital AI age and you create access, right? By having good social skills, that's your ticket into high-end events, into the members clubs, into the yacht parties or whatever else it is that you want to do or that people you admire are doing. Social skills is your ticket. Money's their ticket. Social skills is your ticket. Once you've done that and you've built those social skills, you need to find the way that you can leverage those social skills and incorporate a deep and again 5% knowledge of how AI and large language learning models work. Prompt architecture and engineers, using them for business content and team building. Like think about supply chain is going to be completely destroyed by AI. It's all going to be AI, right? Translating a document from Portuguese to English, that allows a medicine to be produced right now takes 3 months to translate 2 pages of language via humans and checking and double checking and checking it. And AI can do it in 10 seconds flat as of today. So the only thing that's stopping them is just lazy. It's just the lethargy of ideas catching on late. The time is now. Like there really is not a long time before all of this conversation about, oh, jobs are going to get taken over by AI. In the blink of an eye, those jobs have just gone, right? It just takes one courageous, or you could say slightly a cavalier CEO, slightly ruthless CEO to say, fuck it, let's see what happens. And immediately to just cancel a whole department and put a robot in its place. So learn how to apply AI knowledge to whatever you are already doing. And that is your ticket to the social events, that's your access point. And since you've got the skills already because you've been developing them, you now have the ability in those environments at the party, at the club, on the yacht, at the investor meeting, and you have the access, you have the social access because you're one of the few people who both has social skills and knows how AI works and how to apply that. And again, as we see here, positions requiring a high level of social interaction grew by almost 12 percent points. And it says, yeah, wages follow the same patterns. Jobs that blend cognitive ability and social skill pay the highest premiums. Cognitive ability is just going to be AIs, right? All of the stuff that requires cognitive ability is going to be done by the AIs. And social skills, that's you. So you can implement the cognitive ability because you understand the LLMs and you have social skills, which means you can communicate your ideas, sell people on your ideas, show up to investor meetings, represent your company, yourself, your brand well. This is it. This is literally it. If you can do those two things to an exceptional level, you don't need cognitive ability because the AI will do that for you, but it can't do the social skills. People are always going to respond to people. So here's what I want to sort of leave it with, which is this challenge. And again, I don't say this unless it's something that I've already done. But here's my challenge to you. For the next 30 days, I challenge you to do the following things, which will change your life if you complete it. One approach per day for 30 days, no excuses. Now, in my times where I've been least, I suppose, competent with cold approach for whatever reason, I've been traveling, I haven't really been, able to do it as much. Um, yeah, when I was in that position, at least this is what I would do. I'd say, okay, I got to work, I got to hustle, I can't do that much here for whatever reason. Let me just do one. And that means come 7 p.m., I'm like, going crazy from work, get outside, walk around, open my eyes, feel the wind against your face, get present, feel the cool air, see someone you like, go and talk to them. It could be an absolute car crash or it could be really, really good. Doesn't matter. If you do that for 30 days, you've trained yourself in such a beautiful habit because you've removed the resistance to cold approach because it's just so consistent and normal for you to leave the house and do an approach. Literally every time you leave the house, you do one because in that 30 days, you left the house, you did an approach, it becomes habitual. The other, and this is another exercise that I've done for myself, make a 2-page warning letter from yourself 5 years in the future to yourself now. So 5 years from now, right? Imagine that you are yourself 5 years in the future. AI has taken over most everything. And the people that understand it and can implement it across companies, they run whole departments where otherwise they would have just been a worker, right? Everyone's on benefits, everyone's on social credit and just getting paid something to keep them alive. No power, no autonomy, no control over what they do with their life because they're useless, because AI is doing all the jobs. The people who are getting their share of the money that's made are the ones that implemented that AI. And the difference between two people who are otherwise exactly the same is only going to be social skills and literacy with the AIs that they're using. That's it. There's nothing else. All of the cognitive side, the task management, hard work, as we call it, is going to be taken care of. It's just going to be these two things. Like, are you a great communicator and are you literate in using the systems that are going to take down the teams, you could say. So proposing this letter, proposing exactly how AI is about to take your job and what you need to do to be the person implementing that takeover rather than the victim of it, right? These two exercises, I think, will make a very, very strong case in your mind for why what I'm telling you here is true and why by 2030, these are going to be the two skills. And if you document it, if you document it and tell your story, I give you a free weekend in-person coaching with me. So that means I want to see the letter, right? I want to I want to see evidence of your one approach per day, whether that's a voice recording, whether that's credible, provable notes on it. I went out this time, I talked to this person, this is what we talked about. You should all do this anyway, because this is just like accountability, and there is no way you can look at this and say, okay, this isn't going to be a valuable use of my time. It just is. So I know that some of you guys are going to do that, and I'm looking forward to it. Yo, Sam, it's already 20. Some questions. I told you I'd do a Q and A. It's come a little bit later. We started a bit later today because I've been trying to set up bizarrely complicated using my camera instead of the webcam with Zoom because everything else is blasted, in the words of Henry. So, Henry, it's already 2025. Am I cooked? I would ask you to define in context what you mean by cooked, Hennes. Do you mean it's 2025, you haven't been developing your social skills? Is it too late? If that's the question, then the answer is no, you're not cooked. You're going to be just fine, mate. Now's the best time to start. We've got 5 years until until the two sticks on my very elegant graph switch places. Yeah. Where are you? Yeah, yeah. So it's around this point that I very strongly predict, um, that the status is going to become massively influenced by social skills, and that the online influencer model is just going to become completely redundant, and the value of social skills are just going to leap past it as there are more people with 10, 50K followers than there are people who are very, very good at persuasion and communication and social skills. Veiny member, jolly good name. Do you think social media still has some use for long leads? I don't have an Insta anymore. Too bad for mental health personally. Social media still has some use for long leads. Look, it's exactly there's so many areas where um there's this transference, what I call transference. It's like a symmetry across industries, right? So you could look at in the social realm, if you have great social skills but no landing page, like great social skills but no social media, like zero, how are you even going to contact her, right? So it's like, okay, fine, you can show up and that's going to be exciting in your mind, but if you don't use social media, you are going to suffer somewhat, because I think reasonably, one of the pros of something like Instagram, which has very many cons, but one of the pros of it is that it can actually be a filtration system just to know that you're not crazy or likely not crazy. It's not going to tell a woman that you're really, really cool, because people exaggerate, and as we've already said, people fake their profiles, and very, very soon it's all going to be AI images anyway. There's already loads of them. This is happening. This is not in the future, not just fake images, but AI dating profiles is becoming common. There are loads of them already for men and for women. So social media will become a very good filter for women to know whether you're not a complete psycho. Because if you're with a bunch of dudes, four or five friends, and you're dressed nicely and you're giving a real smile, she knows you're not completely crazy, because otherwise these guys wouldn't be hanging around with you, right? She knows you're real. She knows you exist. She knows you're not running from the law in most cases. So Instagram is a good way for her to, remember who you are and say like, oh, okay, cool. That's good to guarantee that he's not, lying about everything and that he is actually real and he's legit and I feel a bit safer. Exactly the same with business. It's like a landing page, right? Cold approach is your lead outreach, is your marketing, right? You go up and you market yourself in the same way that people do Instagram ads or Facebook ads, YouTube ads, or content. And they market themselves, their vision, their mission, their message, their service. And then what do they do from there? Well, they drive it to a landing page where people can communicate with them, whether that's buying a product, booking a call, etc., etc. Your cold approach is, in my opinion, and again, I use the word opinion just to please the centrists here, but really, I just think this is guaranteed. Um, this is the best outreach. The best outreach is to just be walking up and talking to people because it not only provides you with great opportunities, but it also trains you to make the best of every other opportunity. A guy that has trained 3 years cold approach is going to be way more effective at a house party than a guy who's gone to 3 years of house parties. Again, because it's a harder skill to master and it covers all of it. Like if you can do cold approach to a high level, um, and you leverage the skills that you're learning from cold approach and apply them in your social life, you're going to be competent across all social realms. Whereas if you just go to a bunch of parties, that doesn't mean that you're going to be competent walking up to a billionaire investor in the street that you recognize from somewhere or a beautiful woman that you walk past. So cold approach is the fundamental, it's the ground zero, it's the first principle of social skills. It's the hardest, it's the broadest. So yeah, that's how I would answer that. I would get an Instagram and go minimalist. Check out Fluid Social on Instagram, and you'll see 3 posts and a bunch of reels. So yeah, for me, it's literally just that. I just think, what's the simplest way that I can, demonstrate that I'm normal enough, and then you can use reels and stuff like that to, if you want to do outreach or if you want to build something, if you want to sell something. But on your profile, it doesn't have to be magnificent. 3 is maybe really underdoing it, but like 6, 9 photos of things that are cool, things that you like, fun things you've done. That's way better than not having anything. And sometimes it's actually more attractive than having loads of fake followers or loads of followers, right? Like 3, 4, 500 followers, absolutely fine. It's just like people you've met from around. You're not trying too hard. You're not spending time on it, but at least she knows you're connected to the world as it is. You got one foot in and one foot out. You understand technology and the evolving landscape, but you're not tied to it or stuck in it or um, compulsively online, like so many of these fake influencer types are. Personal question. What if you are good at interviews but have a lesser presence in real life? Dutch in Brazil. It's a really good question, but it's actually a very complicated question because if you're good in interviews but you have a lesser presence in real life, that is like the influencer model that we've been discussing because an interview is to some extent a performance, right? You can master interviews without at any moment being real, right? Because the interview is an isolates, like exists in a constructed environment, right? It exists within the framework of I'm going to be sat one on one or one on two across from a person. I'm going to qualify myself to that person based on what I believe they want to hear from me in order to know that I fit the role they're providing. There are a lot of rules and containment to that environment. Um, so if you get good in just that environment, there's not a lot of transferability because when you're in an environment that's constructed differently, or like cold approach, there is no construction. It's absolutely spontaneous. There's no transferability across realms, right? So your interview skills are not going to translate. However, the reverse is not the same because if you are competent in cold approach settings, walking up to a total stranger, not just women. Again, this is, I met, I'm not going to say his name, but I met a Norwegian billionaire in Savile Row fairly recently, and I knew exactly that he was a billionaire without knowing who he was until afterwards. And you get an eye for it, just in the same way you get an eye for women who are available, right? I call it indicators of availability. You start to pick up on cues, maybe that she doesn't have to be interested in you, but she's making herself available to approaches, right? Smiling, looking around, not walking dead ahead, walking slowly. If she's looking around and slowing her walking and smiling a little bit, not even at you, that is a subconscious indicator of availability, meaning she's telegraphing her state of mind as being relaxed, open, not in a rush. And whether she knows it or not, that's her saying, like, if someone wants to start a conversation with me, I'm going to be nice. And I kind of want that. And in the same way, you get indicators of someone who's incredibly competent, incredibly experienced in life. And it was just as obvious to me that this guy was a billionaire investor. And I was going to go up and talk to him and just say, I like your suit. That's a really good fit. It's one of the best dressed guy I've seen today. Congratulations, something like that. He came up to me as I was filming and he asked what we're filming for. Everything from the eye contact down to the way he carries himself, you become perceptive like a woman is to, to nonsense and to indicators of value and such. When you do cold approach, you just become so perceptive because you're constantly paying attention. So, what if you're good at interviews but have a lesser presence in real life? Go and develop your presence in real life, right? Don't let your ego protect you by saying, yeah, but I'm good in interviews, so maybe I don't need to do that in real life, or maybe I can use my interview skills in real life. I'm sorry to say, but I don't think they're very transferable. You might have some insights when you start cold approach from your, practice in interviews, but really you've got to go out and focus on cold approach as the foundation and the basis for all other communication. And if you do that, I mean, literally every other relationship or social setting will improve. Like when I started cold approach, I think that was the first time I hugged my father. I think that was, in fact, I know it was because I would used to give him, before I started cold approach, I'd give him weak handshakes, right? I didn't know, I was just a passenger. So I'd give him weak handshakes and he'd be like, if you're going to give me a weak handshake, we don't need to handshake at all. But he would never break that barrier of giving me a hug. It's very hard for, my dad's over 70. I'm sure a lot of you guys have similar experience where there's just not, the father doesn't initiate vulnerable communication with their son from that generation. And so after I started Cold Approach, I met up with my dad soon after I'd really been doing it. And I saw him sort of look at me and about to extend a hand. I thought, what? I don't know if I'm gonna get banned for saying fuck, but I don't really care. What the fuck am I doing? Like, why am I shaking my old man's hand? Like, he's not gonna be here forever. So I just like shoot it away and just gave him a hug. And that it broke that barrier forever. It's literally like you look back and you say all of these opportunities, like all of these missed opportunities to be real, to just like not fall into these boring, pointless, lazy, weak, cowardly patterns that have just been set at some point and you never challenged or tried to break through. So, like, I'm talking about every social realm. This changed everything in my life, from my relationship with my sister, with my dad, intimate relationships, friendship circles, and how I would, before I started Cold Approach, I would go to a house party and stand on the edge and like wait for people to come and say, "Hey Sam," recognize me as the friend of someone cool who was there as well. And after Cold Approach, I was like, "Hang on a sec, like I can talk to anyone here. This is easy. I can make like friends with any of these dudes, and I can talk to any of these women." It became easy, and it can do that for you as well. So yeah, forget about your interview skills. Don't let that become an ego. Go and do cold approach. It will improve your interview skills um, to no end. All right, Sam, good to see you. Got two kids to sort with food and bus, but I've got you on the stream in the background. We'll always support. Much love, bro. Much love and respect, my friend. I hope it's true. It's always hard with a name like Pest Creeper to know whether you're just having a laugh. But I do believe that you probably have two kids to sort with food and baths. So congratulations if that's true, my friend. That's beautiful. And I hope family life is treating you very, very well. Cool pot. Personally feel AI is going to have a big bust moment. All of them are losing money, like a lot, only a few will survive. Yeah, dude, I think we got to think bigger about it. It doesn't matter how many AI companies go bust, the genie's out the bottle. The technology exists. It's already transformed entire industries. We can say 5 or 10% of industries. I don't know the exact number, but every industry, and this is why I give the challenge to write that letter from yourself 5 years in the future, telling your current self, telling your current self, where is she? Where is the letter? Yeah, tell it exactly how AI is about to take your job, right? This is a really good exercise. Assume that it will. Assume that it will, and then you will start to see the dots connect. Because I've already done it. There's no way that this isn't inevitable reality at this point. So yeah, it really doesn't matter how many companies go bust. It's the idea, right? Just in the same way that it doesn't matter how many, how do we say this in a non-politically aggravating way? It doesn't matter like how many Sikh people would be executed for believing what they believe. It will just create more in their place. Like the idea is out, and so then the technology exists, and so that's not going away. And so where companies die, other companies will come. This is 100% happening, and I am genuinely excited about it. I was a little bit, wouldn't say scared, but I would say cautious, and sort of it lingered on my mind of like, am I replaceable by an AI? It's like most of what I do. Can other people do what I do with infinitely more scalability, with infinitely more effectiveness, infinitely faster, infinitely more effective because of AI? And when you really focus on it, you just think, hang on a sec, like this is the start. We're at the start. We're like when Bitcoin was at $500 or $1,000, right? It feels like it's already here, but it's not. We haven't even started to see what's to come. So it doesn't matter how many companies die, my friend. The technology's there. People know about it. It's not isolated to any one place. It's global. So there's no stopping that train. One trick pony. Social skills are very important. I did three. Oh, what am I up to here? I did three boot camps, James Tusk. I got good success by meeting new people and going on interesting dates with good-looking women. Good man. Yeah, I mean, I come away from the boot camps that I do having learned lots, like a lot. One of the ways when I'm talking to guys who are interested in boot camps, and we did one in Warsaw last month, and I'll be doing some more. I'm doing an event in Thailand this year in November, and many more, probably Brazil as well in November, December. Now, one of the things that is very easy for me to say is when you look back on this year, 2025, again, 5 years from now, let's say 3 years from now, you're not going to remember very much, right? You might remember having a kid if you're pest creeper over here. You might remember buying a house. You might remember the death of a close friend or a loved one. You might remember one event that you went to. You will not forget the boot camp. It's funny, but I say it because even as a coach, having done loads of them, they are always unforgettable. You don't lose those memories. There's something so vital, lived. There's something so you feel so much like you're living, such a richness of experience of being with a group of men who are for one another. They want each other to succeed. They are focused on a mutual task, doing the same task. As we all know, men connect better when they're doing a shared task, building a shed, or going out to improve their skill set than they do just being sat together to talk. right? Men are better when they have a task to focus on. The connection happens as a side effect. So when you're in that environment, you're with guys that they're smart, they're ambitious, they're all here for the same reason. You're in a foreign land, you're in a new place where your anchors of normalcy and banality and normalness of your home setting are sort of blown up, and suddenly you're seeing new things, you feel different, your identity gets this kind of reality check. It gets this resistance of like, okay, well, who are you in this environment? Foreign language, you're not a big fish here anymore, you're not safe here. So you kind of have to adapt, and it's stimulating, there's adrenaline. You don't forget them. They're just amazing. I really think boot camps are one of um, the best investments. And I say that like for me as well. Like it's a good investment for me to do someone else's boot camp. They're just so much fun and so memorable. So I'm glad you got that. I'm glad you got that value out of it, my friend. And I hope you can confirm or agree with me that I bet you still remember those conversations. I bet you still remember some of the dinners you had with the guys. Oliver Feeney, Sam, I've recently returned to university for further study after a few years break. How would you go about cold approaching on campus without building reputation as that guy? That's a really good question as well. Honestly, again, I was last at university. I left university in 2015. I was cautious on campus. I'm not gonna lie. I went out into the town. I was in Nottingham and I went to the University of Nottingham, and I didn't approach people on campus because I thought, why would I use the world stage essentially as my sparring ground or my testing ground, right? I want to spar, I want to practice in an environment that's anonymous, in an environment where blunders or mistakes don't come back and bite me in the ass. So I think there's a lot of value to looking at it that way and saying, why don't I practice and really sort of go out into somewhere where it really doesn't matter. There's no repercussions, there's no social pressure, especially if you've got a couple of friends from your university who you can go into town with, and maybe you'll see people from your university in town, but I wouldn't focus at the beginner stage on doing that on campus. It's great for practicing the other side of things, right? The social networking side that we've got up here. You did have got that. You got it here. So these are the two. It's like gyms, members clubs, co-living, working, obviously university clubs and such. That's great practice at university, but not cold approach. I think are really not grave social repercussions, but it's just like you don't need any social pressure. Like it's just not necessary. Once you've got it handled, then you can apply it in the house parties. You can see someone walking on campus and she knows a friend of yours or she knows someone. You can go up and say, hey, we haven't met yet, but you know Michael from geography lecture, whatever. And that you can then pull off with confidence. But I wouldn't use it as like an initial practice ground. So yeah, real life's network. So for B, it's good on campus. For A, it's better to go to town. We were quite lucky because we had Nottingham Trent University, um, and that was more in town, and not University of Nottingham was on campus, so I could go to the campus for the house parties and for leveraging the skills that I was building in the testing round, which was mostly with students from Trent. Hope that answers the question. Would you relate cold approach to fighting? At first, the feeling that something will go wrong are overwhelming, but the more you get comfortable, the easier to deal with the emotions it is. Yeah, I would say, I mean, I did a video recently about how to transition into a relationship as someone that has like I suppose, like honored the process of cold approach or really dedicated to it, because there's always a vacuum inevitably. Like I don't know anyone that got really good at cold approach or really invested in it that didn't feel some sense of loss, identity loss or lifestyle loss when they then transitioned into a relationship. So not to say that you have to stop cold approaching completely when you're in a relationship. I think that I think that that's very, very black and white thinking. And I think that a lot of the time, It's again how if you've developed your broader social skills, you can argue a very good case as to why cold approach is very, very valuable, not just for you, but for the relationship as well. I think the simplest of which is that if you're in a relationship or if you want to be in a relationship with a genuinely like good woman, so if you haven't just settled for someone who's materially attractive or superficially attractive, but someone that is actually a good person by your metrics, you can normally say to her, like, listen, you're a beautiful girl. There's never going to be a time where guys aren't interested in you. Guys aren't giving you attention. Men aren't chasing you around. And I understand that you're not asking them to, but that it's nice to know, isn't it? I mean, it's nice to know that you got attention. Imagine if you walked out and just no guys were ever interested in you. You went to the bar and they never talked to you. You went on the street and they never looked at you. How do you think you'd feel? You'd probably look in the mirror and say, what's happened? Well, that's what it's like to be a man. If we don't go out and start conversations, we don't get any feedback. No one communicates with us, not men nor women. And that's true. Like, if men don't start conversations, men don't have any friends or relationships. Men are completely invisible and obsolete for the most part, right? And so if you say you trust me not to be faithful in the relevant ways with you, but it's been something that's really important to me to be able to start conversations both with men and with women, right? Without the intention to take them anywhere, but to get feedback from other people, right? So like it's something that helps me understand myself or know where I am. And it makes me stronger and it makes me more competent and it makes me a better partner to you, right? And it'll make me a better father to our kids. You can argue this not in a deceptive way, but isn't that true, right? Actually ask yourself, is it or is it not good for her if it's good for you? Isn't it going to make you better in the bedroom? Isn't it going to make you better as a provider, as a committed partner, as a husband, as a father, whatever you decide you want to go with it? Because in my case, it is not just as a professional obligation, but it is fundamentally good for everyone that I'm as strong as I can be, as capable as I can be. No one who relies or depends on me, and quite a number of people do to some extent, no one wants me to be weaker. They all depend on me being strong. So to simultaneously ask your partner, I want you to stop doing that thing that makes you stronger and thereby become weaker. That how do you answer that? Like I can't do that because it'll be unkind to you, right? And again, I know this is a nuanced conversation. You have to present that the right way, and it shouldn't be an ultimatum. It should be a conversation. But yeah, I really believe it's a good one to have. And look, one thing I've learned, look, about the game beyond the game, right? The game beyond being a single guy doing cold approach is that you can negotiate so much more than you thought you'd be able to if you open those conversations, right? I learned this 4 or 5 years ago, and it was about threesomes at the time. But I was in a relationship with a girl. And I thought, oh God, I really wanted to have some of those experiences, right? I wanted to do more of that, like live more of that side of my life. Different time, guys. And I felt like claustrophobic by the relationship I was in because, because I felt like I couldn't because I was in a relationship and that's not what you do, or like that she wouldn't want that. And I just opened the conversation one day and she was 100% up for it. She was like, yeah, if you find someone that I like and if it's like focused on me, then sure, that would be fun. And so sometimes it's not even these things aren't even hard. It's just like overcoming the resistance to open up that conversation. What just like a cold approach, you have to trust yourself with one thing to make this simple. Guys get stuck on cold approach or on opening up conversations with a partner or with someone they're dating, relationship, or with a wife. They get stuck, what if, right? What if she responds badly? What if she doesn't like it? But that assumes that once it's done, you can't then respond and make it better, right? Like if you do the approach and she says, I don't want to talk to you, like all the damage is done and there's no coming back. The truth is you can be like, that's absolutely fine. I just wanted to give you that compliment. Have a great day. You have now fixed the situation, right? You took a risk, it didn't pay off, and then you made it better. That's better than not taking the risk, right? It's just like on a date. You go in to kiss the girl, she pulls away a little bit, and you don't respond badly to that. You're like, you know, had to try. You're now more likely to kiss her later on because she said, I'm not ready for that yet. And you responded with, that's okay, whenever you're ready. Whereas if you hadn't done it, you never break down that barrier. She never knows that you have that intention. Maybe she knows you do have that intention, but you're too scared to express it, right? Opening up these conversations, particularly in relationships or with someone you're dating, telling her what you want and not as an ultimatum of like it's over if you don't do this, but genuinely as a like, I would like to experience this thing with you, right? Whether that be marriage or multiple partners at the same time. You open that conversation, even if the answer is no, you have a chance to show that you are secure in the way that you respond and you see the possibility for future. So just have the difficult conversations. It's genuinely such a good heuristic. If there's a difficult conversation that I'm scared about having, remember that it's not done once I open it up. It's just open. It's like you walk through the door, you don't need to close it. You right? It's not done once you say those words. You then have a whole period of freedom and flexibility to respond and to further the conversation and to find out why she doesn't want that and what she maybe wants instead that could be better for both of you. And so, yeah, open up the hard conversations across all realms, whether it be professional, social, or relationship. You're welcome, Dutch in Brazil. Oh yeah, so we were talking about fighting, weren't we? Yeah, I did a whole video on that, Mr. Creeper. And yeah, they are very, very similar. They're very, very similar because they're both tangible, real, lived, physical. Use your body in fighting, use your body in approaching. Their life and death. We have the same adrenal response as like I'm in real risk of death. And that's because cold approach at some point in our existence was incredibly consequential in a tribal setting, let's say. That's why we're so scared of it, because we've evolved the biological response to be life or death, and now it's not. It's completely anonymous because we didn't have cities before. So there we are. Yep, it's exactly the same as fighting. They have they're very transferable and they are truly transferable, unlike interviews that someone else mentioned, in that if you build discipline with fighting and you start to understand that the hardest part is getting started, the hardest part is showing up to the first session, the second hardest part is showing up to the second, and the third hardest is the third session. And after that, it just gets easier and easier with occasional blips where you feel like you're not making progress and some really high highs where, you know, you beat a purple belt and you've only been doing it for 6 months. You know, you get them to tap out in BJJ. So yeah, it's exactly like cold approach, right? The hardest ones are the ones at the start. Once you build momentum, it becomes purely like obviously good and pleasurable and beneficial. And then you have blips where you start talking like a robot and saying the same things over and over again and like being feeling really disconnected from everyone you talk to. Like you don't really find anyone that interesting or attractive. And then like you have some epiphany that you weren't really, you could just be interested in them. And in my case, it was that I was like, what if I actually just be interested? What if I just treat it like a book? And I'd say, oh, I'm not interested in reading that book. But then I open pages and I'm like, actually, I can relate to a lot of this. I can learn from this. This is interesting. I just prejudged it in a sense, right? And you decide to be interested, and then all of a sudden you become natural and you start saying new things, and you realize all these you know, slightly sociopathic crutches you were depending on by just repeating the same script over and over again. So, guys, if any of this resonates, and if any of you want to talk about it, if any of you guys have an obstacle that you'd like my help solving, whether it relates to getting over the initial approaches or, as of more recently, transitioning your cold approach into a relationship with a loyal woman, which is difficult to find, but not impossible. Get in touch with me. I should have put the link in the description if I haven't yet. Yeah, I have done. So you guys can book a call with me and we can talk through your sticking points and what it is that I can help you with. Henry, I live in the suburbs, and cold approaching has a lot of dead time, low volume. So isn't it less valuable than apps at the moment? Um, no, it's not less valuable than the apps. It's not less valuable, no. And how I would explain why, it's like the apps are giving you access to a pool of leads, right? So imagine, I don't know what you do, Henry, but imagine you work as a paralegal at a law firm and your law company is looking for new clients because, they're struggling, right? I could say, Henry, well, I've got 10,000 people who've sent me emails, called me on my mailing list. You can have them, right? And you would say, wow, that's 10,000 leads. That's so valuable. But my leads aren't going to sign up to your law firm. Why would they? I've never talked about your law firm. My clients tend not to be in legal trouble. There's no value to those leads. You wouldn't get a single sale, right? Just if you sent out marketing emails, you wouldn't get a single sale. There would have to be an introduction, right? Where I would say, this is Henry. I've been using his law firm for the last 10 years. They've got me out of three pickles over the last 10 years that are no one else could have done. He's one of the best guys. He's massively undervalued. Get in touch with Henry. Yeah, if I did that, you'd have a good chance of getting a bunch of sales. But my leads are valueless to you unless there's an introduction. This is a perfect example. That's what it is on the apps. There's no value to those because you're in a constructed environment where those leads that you have access to, but absolutely no power to actually connect with, are seeing elevated profiles of top 0.5% men, one after the other, algorithmically. Now, even if you're in the top 0.5%, like 1 in 200 looks guys, right? Let's say you're in the top 0.5%. It's still not good for you to be on it because you are now sourcing women based on the fact that the only criteria they can pay attention to on the apps is looks and money, the two most base, sort of superficial qualities, right? Because there's nothing else. There's nothing in reality to be attracted to, right? They can't see anything else. So you are then going into a bunch of relationships where you know that nothing about their selection criteria is relevant to who you are. So you start to lose interest in all of it. It's like, damn, really? Like all these women just want to meet me because of these photos I put up, and your social skills are chronically underdeveloped because they're going to be the ones that are over investing and overextending, and you honestly don't want that as a man. You turn into an idiot, right? If you've ever met some of like, I met a few male models, very successful male models, an Italian and actually a UK guy as well. I've got a lot of friends who are models, or a number of friends, but the top ones are sincerely some of the most troubled people I know because their biology and their cultural programming are completely at odds. Their biology is telling them, I'm supposed to fight for this. I'm supposed to work for this. I'm supposed to contribute something of value for this. Why am I getting this so easy? We don't want to be born into money. We don't want to be born into endless attention that we didn't earn. That denies us the hero's journey, right? Think about that. If you are given the goal, the prize at the start, you are not lucky. You've been denied the fundamental journey of life, which is starting from nothing, having no value, building up your value through suffering, pain, toil, journey, highs and lows, roller coaster. and finding the reward or the prize at the end of it. And the most obvious one throughout history has been like family and partner acquisition. You start with nothing, you work really, really hard, you suffer, you get beaten up, learn how to fight, your business gets blown out the water, you start from scratch, build it up to 1 million, all this life experience, this entire hero's journey that actually follows. Uh, there's a specific sort of 6 steps of the hero's journey. And then you get the reward and you truly appreciate it. And in your mind, you form this narrative, which is also true, at least by extent, that you've had this beautiful process of zero to hero. Now, these guys don't get that. And they end up very, very troubled and also incredibly, incredibly dull to talk to because they just don't, they've never had to learn anything or improve anything. So my point here is that if you're not in the top realistically 5 to 10%, you're not going to be going on dates or meaningful dates with women of the quality that you are interested in. If you are in that small bracket of men who gets all of the above average matches on dating apps, then you feel like you shouldn't because you haven't earned it. And it would have been better for you to go out in real life and at least see that they could be attracted to you for something other than the way that you look. So, no, even if you live in a suburbs, who's hanging out in the suburbs? What's the closest city? How long do you need to be here? Because ultimately, it's a question also of how much you're valuing the different areas of your life. The suburbs are good because I live with my family, I don't have to pay rent, or the suburbs are good because I bought a house there and I'm close to the people I like. And there's a number of reasons why they're good. But how much do you value the other areas of your life? Adventure, finding an amazing woman, exploring, traveling the world, finding the optimal location by a beach or in the mountains or in a large city. Why not get out of the suburbs? It's not possible right now, I imagine, for you, but why not set that as a 3-year target and enjoy the journey towards getting out? Because it's going to be more fun than being out, right? When we set ourselves that challenge of instead of bandaging over the infected wound by using dating apps to make everything seem okay when it's fundamentally not, I'm going to actually cure the infection itself by figuring out my life so that I can live exactly where I want to live and have the opportunities that I want to have that I can explore with and engage with in real life and that haven't possibly just been on a bunch of dates with other guys, who look like me or better or worse than me the nights before and go through the same interview style questions and fundamentally never really learn anything because all of your communication is isolated to constructed environments where you haven't actually had the foreplay. You've gone straight to the date, but you haven't actually built any emotion. You haven't earned the date because you haven't done anything. You haven't stepped up. You haven't been courageous. So when I was in positions where I couldn't, I would put intentionally, well, I mean, this was a long time ago because I haven't used dating apps for many, 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 many years. But when I started, there was obviously that overlap period, as I said, 2012, 13, when I started, around the time I started Cold Approach, they started getting popular. So there was a 2 or 3, 4 years maybe where there was an overlap. And when I was in that position, happened even in London for a couple of years where I was just snowed under. I didn't have any money. I was stuck. I would delete the dating apps. I'd say, well, now what? Burn your bridges. Now you've got to get out. Now you've got to make this happen. Now you have to make the most of the suburbs, my friend, or get out of the suburbs because the dating apps are what's going to keep you in the suburbs. They're going to keep you imagining that everything's okay when the fact is the problem is more fundamental and it's not just a quick fix solution like using dating apps to solve it. Hope that makes sense and you understand. You don't hate me for giving you that, dropping that possible truth bomb. Also, Sam, my kid's a direct result of your guidance and knowledge. Everything I learned from you and Tusk I used in cold approach. Met my wife. We've been together for 10 years and made two boys. Absolute legend. Good man. Good man. Cool. Awesome. All right, guys. Nice to see you all. Get in touch with me. The link's in the description. The link is in the description. If I yam this over here, it looks like this. This is my website. Actually, there's not the link in the description. Calendly should be here. Book a free call if you dare. Or you can just visit the website and see more stuff there. Or just give me like a thumbs up. I haven't got a single one on the video. Pretty tough times for a man out here, isn't it? So maybe those come later. I don't know. That'd be nice. Be nice if someone gives me a thumbs up. All right, guys.